Let's head on out to the fan hotline. He's one of our analysts, co-host of our Sunday tailgate shows here on the Fan. He's Coach Riz. Coach Lance Reisland joining us. Good afternoon, Coach. How are you?
How are you guys today? Happy Sunday.
Yeah, happy Sunday, fun day. So what did you think of Friday night? Was it as good as we thought it was?
Well, you know what? I think one thing I've always learned is that you got to enjoy, especially when you're struggling as a football team, you got to enjoy when good things happen, right? And a lot of good things happen. And I thought the quarterback play was very good, but I thought the operation, the sense of urgency, the attention to detail, kind of the 1-2. When you're coming off a 3-win season, I thought you saw the hunger in those guys kind of flying around on both sides of the ball. I thought the quarterback play was very, very good. I thought Shedeur had he did some things very, very well with his footwork, ball handling. Obviously, he made some really good throws. But you see the progression in what he's doing fundamentally that's really helping him deliver an accurate football. So, yeah, I thought it was a pretty successful day. More than any individual performance, I thought their sense of urgency coming off a really tough year was really good.
Coach, your colleague Mary Kay Cabot had a really nice blurb that was shared out by the Hall of Famer, Joe Thomas, about Shedeur Sanders and why he hasn't received more time with the ones at practice because of things like being able to relay the play from the headset to the huddle and some of the pre-snap stuff with all the motions that Kevin Stefanski likes to do, and that Dylan Gabriel is just further than him in those type of things. Were you able to pick up on any of the things that Shedeur was able to do on Friday in terms of all of that QB stuff that's pre-snap before the football even arrives in Shedeur Sanders' hands? You see any of that kind of stuff, or are you even able to see any of that from the game tape?
Oh, absolutely. So what you get when I watch the game tape is that a lot of coming in when he got drafted, moved down to the 5th round, people are like, oh, he's having trouble processing. That's not really the case. The issue was pass protection, no run game. And when you have no pass protection, run game, you're calling plays. How are you successful? Well, if you're going to throw the ball and you don't have a lot of pass protection, you got to get rid of the ball quickly. It also creates some bad habits, drifting backwards, holding onto the ball. Shedeur was the offense, right? So if he didn't play, they didn't score, etc. So he had that mantra where he had to make every play. And that's some of his, if he gets into a bad habit, that's what it would be. I thought he did a really good job of stepping up a number of times, his ability to process. But I'm right with Mary Kay. I think Mary Kay is absolutely correct on this. Obviously, Joe Thomas is a guy who understands the game better, has forgotten more football than all of us know, is that being underneath center, the footwork from underneath center, the play action, the different launch points, the full field reads, just doing all those things, the pre-snap motion. A lot of colleges are all no huddle where everything is just signaled in, and having to call multiple plays in the huddle. That's just reps. Those aren't things he can't do. Those are just things he's progressing. And I will say this, I think Shedeur Sanders has been set up for success by the Browns. Not that they've been holding him back. I think part of his success is you got to give Kevin Stefanski a little credit of kind of building and getting to him where he's successful. You heard him say, I felt confident in there. That's all coaching, getting into the plays that he likes, he understands. So I thought it was a great step for him, and we'll see what happens moving forward. But it was obviously a very good start.
Lance Reisland joining us on the fan hotline. Coach, it wasn't all great from Shedeur. So let's talk about some of the things where he can get better at, things that he needs to clean up for him to be able to become a regular starter in the National Football League. I liked his mobility. I did not like him turning his back a couple of times to the line of scrimmage and running the opposite direction, trying to evade that pressure.
Oh, there's no question. So obviously there's lots to clean up, and you have to always be realistic with yourself. And there's steps in the process if he's going to get first team reps or not. But I think they've done a good job of getting him to this point. If I would say the thing that is, like, for example, on the 4th and 2 play, the thing that concerns me more about the scramble is that he compounded an error with an error, right? So he and the receiver, they missed a hot read, a blitz came, the safety was over top. Maybe they could have got rid of that 4th down and 2, simple, easy throw. But then throw the ball away or give your receiver a chance on 4th and 2 instead of scrambling. Because when you turn your back, like you said, Darryl, when you turn your back to the line of scrimmage or you're scrambling like that, two things happen. One is everybody's running around, you scramble drill, bad things can happen. Next thing is you're taking unwanted hits at that level. And those are things you just can't take if you're not a huge 6'5" guy. You can't be taking endless punishment from those huge NFL guys. So I just think he's got to make sure that he sees everything, which for me is, again, reps. He's got to make sure that he's not retreating. And he's got to make sure that he protects the football. In his scrambles, he's a little bit loose with the ball when he carries it. he did a lot of things really well, but to make yourself better, you got to be really critical of yourself. And there's some things that he has to work on. When the play breaks down, he doesn't have to be the hero every time. And that just comes with experience. Another thing is, obviously when you get a little rhythm, he tried to squeeze a couple in there that may have been intercepted. Those are all learning curve things. He's learning the speed. But again, I thought there's more positive than negative, but there's for sure footwork wise and consistency in that footwork is his next step to being able to play a full Sunday game.
I thought some of the stuff, Lance, the positive stuff was the accuracy, the way that he was able to kind of throw open Caden Davis in that 3-man window where there are DBs all around the end zone. We have also recounted the Luke Floria catch, was Julian Edelman-esque. I know that's a comp that you've made here on the program before. That accuracy is just something that kind of can't be taught, right? The fact that he's able to go out there and shoot some of these throws in really small windows.
Well, you hear a lot about his arm talent. Arm talent there's being able to throw the ball really, really hard, and then there's anticipation and accuracy, which is going to improve your arm talent because you're getting the ball out earlier, which makes it in turn kind of seem faster, right? He does a great job with that. Dan Lobby and I were talking last year. We were about his red zone efficiency and how accurate he is in those really, really tight windows down in the red zone. What made that first touchdown even more impressive to me, first of all, very, very common play Kevin likes to run with the 3 receivers to one side. They're all on a different level. What made that play really nice is that it was actually at the 3rd level. So he came to the top of that level. So that means he had to work through 1, 2, 3 and got to that 3rd progression. And then just through a really, really catchable layered route, he had the flat defender in the corner. So just a really good route, modified 7 by Caden Davis. But again, that accuracy in the red zone is one of the things, he completed over 70% of his passes. So accuracy with time, if he can set his feet, that's always been there. And that's what you see on film from Colorado. If he's in the red zone, he's deadly accurate in those really, really tight windows.
What do you do now? Put yourself in Kevin Stefanski in the Browns position, Lance. What do you do now with this depth chart and the reps following that performance from Shedeur, combined with the knowledge that Dillon Gabriel's dealing with or going to be coming off a hamstring injury?
Well, for me, I think Kevin has a plan. Obviously, Darryl down there, you watch practice every day. Stefanski's always had kind of his plan with how he runs practice and how he does things. And he doesn't really, it's like when he interviews with you guys, he doesn't really go off the path too much, right? So I think they have a plan for Shedeur. And I've said this leading up to the game, him playing well. It was kind of they should have played him earlier. They set him up for fit. I think they set him up for success, building him towards this. Now, when you play well, you get more reps, and whatever that is, or however that is in the meeting rooms, or whatever stuff he's getting. Now he's got to start getting the more motions, the more formations, the more he's going to start getting NFL looks with coverages and rotations and things like that. So I think it just puts him in the mix. But I think they have a pretty good plan of what they think they want to do with him, and this was just the next step. And I said it going into the game, whether he played really well, which he did, he was outstanding, or didn't play that well. Right there, it's going to be a learning curve for him just to kind of see some of the things. Like he's going to go in and see some of the mistakes he made. He won't make those again, but then there will be other ones because of how the defense adjusts. If anything, I think he's really created more competition in that room. He kind of puts everybody on edge, and that's not a bad thing. Fighting for a spot on a football team is not a bad thing, and maybe that's kind of what he's bringing. That attitude where, hey, you got to go out and you got to fight for your job. And I don't know. I think he's kind of put himself in the mix now. We'll see what happens moving forward. I look forward, seeing team drills tomorrow and seeing how that's split up.
Coach, is there such a thing as being a bad practice quarterback? I know we're kind of holding on to hope that come game setting, Dillon Gabriel could be better than what he's put out there during practice when you guys are at Berea. But is that even a thing that some QBs just aren't efficient at practice at all, and then come game time they could turn it on and be a completely different player?
Well, I would say this: Dillon Gabriel, he has done a lot of things really well, but the thing that I was talking about with Darryl on day 10, his last 3 days accuracy really struggled. So in terms of setting pass protection, understanding where he's going with the football, moving his feet, fundamentals, mechanics, torque, all those things we talk about with quarterbacks, he's outstanding. Unfortunately, the product wasn't really good. And if the process doesn't match the product, then you have problems. Now, the thing you're always talking about is the it factor, right? When the lights go on, that's why so many people, including myself, get quarterbacks wrong, because you don't know how they're going to react when the lights go on and it's Sunday afternoon at 1 o'clock on national TV and all that kind of stuff, and the daily grind, and it's 17 weeks long. So, there is the it factor. And for me, I don't think Dylan's biggest issue when you watch him right now is accuracy. And obviously that's the most important thing. But without the process, he can't get to the accuracy. But those are things he's going to, as he goes on, the product is going to overweigh the process. And I'm a process-based guy, especially at the quarterback position. But that accuracy has to increase for him to be in the hunt here, because that's what the other quarterbacks are doing. They're being pretty consistent with their accuracy.
Coach Riz, Lance Reisland, our analyst and co-host of our Sunday tailgate show here on The Fan, joining us on the Fan Hotline. All right, let's talk about some other things that happened Friday night, not related to Shedeur Sanders. The two rookie defenders, Mason Graham and Carson Schlesinger, I liked what I saw from both of them. I think the sky's the limit for them. When you went back and you watched the tape, similar to Shedeur, did it end up being as good as it looked at first glance?
Well, first of all, like you said, the defense as a whole was flying around, and those two rookies were outstanding. Now, Mason Graham's a guy came into camp. He doesn't give you the wow factor, when he runs out of the locker room like Miles does, when Miles looks like he's cut out of granite walking out of the way. But what you saw yesterday is that wrestling, or Friday, you saw that wrestling background. He has great base, great foundation. He's just kind of a pain in the butt in there for an offensive line. And sometimes his stats won't be through the roof, but you're going to see him get the quarterback out of the pocket or make the back cut back into his teammates. He penetrates really well. He's a big, heavy guy. And then Schlesinger is, for me, way beyond his years. And about being the green dot, I don't think there's any question. His ability to instinctually, he played like 11 plays and had 5 or 6 tackles because he sees what's in front of him and he pulls the trigger, and he is fast to the line of scrimmage. And obviously I talk about his background with his academics and stuff, but you can see him kind of thinking through plays, and not only is he instinctual, but he's prepared. So those two rookies were outstanding. But I thought, the backup secondary guys played pretty well. I thought everybody ran around. That's one of the, everybody talks about operation. That's part of it. Like, how much do you want to play, especially in that third and fourth quarter? I thought the Browns were very energetic for 4 quarters coming off a really tough year.
I had noticed on the game broadcast that there were times where Mason Graham was getting double teamed in the first preseason game of his NFL career. Like, Coach, teams aren't going to be able to do that when Myles Garrett's next to him, right? What are offensive coordinators going to do around football with Mason Graham, Myles Garrett next to each other on the same defensive line?
Well, the thing that's really interesting is you saw I'm going to see interested to see how they do against Philadelphia, but you saw the Browns walk up those 2 linebackers inside, right next to the center. So on the line of scrimmage, there's 6 players. And whether they come or not, the offensive line has to assume that all 6 are coming. Very rarely does Schwartz bring all 6, but what it does is it creates those one-on-one matchups. So you're going to see that a bunch this year, where especially if a team is going to only block with 5, like the Bengals, Taylor likes to get 5 out, you're going to see the Browns cover that center. And what that does, it just creates one-on-one matchups with everybody. So it's going to be very interesting, especially if he's opposite of Myles. Everybody next to him is really good, but you put him at the other defensive tackle away from Myles, now you're in real trouble because you can't even slide that way. So it'll be very interesting. And, guys like Alex Wright and Malik Collins, who's been super, super impressive in camp, they got guys who can win one-on-one matchups. It'll be very interesting. But I saw that a lot on Friday, where they're crowding the line of scrimmage, and all they're trying to do is find one-on-one matchups, and that's what Schwartz does best. So it'll be very interesting. That defensive line, I said it for a couple weeks now, they're very impressive athletically.
Was there a player that stood out to you that we have not mentioned Friday night?
I don't think so. I think, once again, I think it was more as a whole, right? I think one of the most overused words is culture, right? And culture is what you do, not what you say. I thought the Browns, you talk about operation on offense, they had a couple penalties, but just lining up right and gap integrity and making sure that people are covered. And you didn't have a ton of blown assignments. And the punt team was outstanding. And the kickoff, they did some, if he doesn't miss that extra point, I thought the kicking games were pretty, they won those for sure. So for me, more than individual performance, I thought the operation, the attention to detail, the sense of urgency, all those things coming off a tough year, I thought they looked really good and clean, which is kind of what you want that. Now, I think, obviously this week is a huge week. These joint practices are huge, but I thought that was a really good first step just as a team and the effort they gave as a team for 4 quarters.
All right. Great stuff as always, Coach. We'll see you tomorrow out in Berea, and big week for the Orange and Brown, as you alluded to. They got those joint practices with the Eagles before they play, in 6 days against the Eagles Saturday afternoon.
You got it, man. I'll see you tomorrow. And guys, thanks for having me on.
Thanks, Coach.
Thanks so much. There he is. Lance Reisland, Coach Riz, our analyst here at the Fan, also co-host of our Sunday tailgate show.